Good morning, everyone. It's good to see everyone. Good to see you all, and hope your weekend is going well. And welcome on behalf of the IMCW, Insight Meditation Community Washington, and the Center for Mindful Living, which is part of IMCW, and has been offering this class and many other programs. We very warmly welcome and good to see everyone. If anyone is new and hasn't joined us before, we'd love to hear from you. If you want to put a few words in the chat where you're joining us from, and welcome to everyone. So welcome to our Sunday morning class. I've been teaching a Sunday morning class going back almost 25 years now, so it's kind of pretty established way to begin the Sunday, and good to be with everyone. Just in terms of the format of the class, we normally begin with a meditation, about 20 minutes or so, guided meditation. And then we have a talk. I think we're not going to be having movement today, but we'll have, I hope, some opportunity for people to share and raise questions and have a conversation. And do feel free to share anything you'd like to. If things come up for you, share in the chat and use that as a way of communicating. Good morning, Elizabeth. Just moved to Virginia. Happy to be here. Happy to have you here. Welcome to you. And Janine from Tampa, welcome to you. Barbara, rejoining after many months in Washington, D.C. So yeah, good to be together. Jody from Southwest Virginia. So today, the theme will be making the obstacle the path, making difficulties really into the place where we shine the spotlight, where we pay attention, and using difficulties, really, challenges, things that we don't necessarily find pleasant, as a place to learn, to grow, to see things more clearly, and ultimately to free ourselves from suffering. A spiritual teacher, Adyashanti, says, we come to nirvana by way of samsara. Nirvana being obviously awakening and freedom, and samsara being the kind of the what translates as endless wandering, kind of looking for happiness, but kind of getting caught up and getting tangled, and all the ways that we experience suffering, whether it's clinging or it's not liking how things are or resisting. And so we'll be exploring today how we can make obstacles into the place where we grow and free ourselves. Adyashanti goes on, he make nirvana as a path to samsara, bondage as a way to freedom, kind of seeing where we're stuck and having our place of stuckness be like the place where we really pay attention. There's something, it's really telling us there's something we need to see here, or something we need to learn here, something we need to let go of here. So that's kind of what we'll be exploring today. So we'll begin with a meditation. Good to see you, Arnie. Welcome. And Peggy, welcome. Susan. All those joining us, welcome. So we'll begin with a meditation, and a couple of words before we, excuse me, before we begin. The invitation, really, in meditation, I say in mindfulness meditation, is not so much to create particular states, pleasant states, calm states, peaceful states, but rather to learn to be with all of our experience, learn to welcome all of the guests and to find peace amidst the joys and the sorrows and the ups and the downs. And so I find it very helpful in meditation. It's certainly useful to be able to use the breath and, calm the body and calm the mind and settle. That's very, very helpful. But most important, really, to cultivate an attitude of acceptance of whatever comes up, open to whatever is arising in the body and the heart and the mind. And, whether it's, pleasant or unpleasant, peaceful or more agitated, just turning our attention to it and see what happens when we do this. See if there's anything that we come to see, anything we come to see about where we might be holding on or resisting our experience or resisting life, and invite a relaxing back into a kind of welcoming attitude towards whatever's arising in the body, in the heart, and the mind. So let's take some moments to arrive and settle. So you like to find a posture that's comfortable, relaxed. So it's helpful to have your back straight so you're not straining or tense, trying to hold a particular position, but just back straight, inviting the shoulders to relax, letting your hands rest wherever they're comfortable. And if you'd like, you can close your eyes, let your attention come inward. Let your attention drop out of the thinking mode as much as you can and come down into the body. Feel the body, feel the weight of your body pushing down on your buttocks, on your thighs, your feet, contact with the floor or whatever they're touching, hands in the lap or on the knees. That's letting yourself arrive and settle. You might find it helpful to take a few longer, deeper breaths. Like take a nice full deep in-breath, filling the chest, filling the lungs. And then a long, slow out-breath, releasing, letting go on the out-breath. Let the deeper breathing help you relax and settle into being here. Breathing in, calming the body. Breathing out, calming the mind. You might invite an attitude of acceptance, kindness towards whatever is present for you, whatever you're noticing right now. See if you can make space for it. If there's tightness or tension, seeing if you can let your awareness be large enough to let those feelings come and go. Let them come, let them be, let them go. See if you can let whatever is present just be here, meeting it with acceptance, just letting it come, letting it be, and letting it pass when it's ready to pass. If it's helpful, you can just let your attention rest on your breathing as an anchor, kind of helping you be here. Breathing in and breathing out. And just welcoming and allowing whatever comes into awareness, whatever's present for you. The poet Rumi speaks of welcoming the guests. Whoever comes, just welcoming, letting them come, letting them be. He says, even if they're a crowd of sorrows who sweep your house empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. And if you find yourself caught up in thinking about something that happened or something you have to do, plans, memories, or daydreams, worries, just gently and kindly let your attention come back to the body, come back to the breath, come back to this awareness of whatever is coming up in your experience. If something difficult or challenging comes up, whether it's a bodily feeling or an emotion or a thought or a memory, see if you can just let that place of difficulty be where you place your attention. If there was a feeling of sadness comes up, you might notice where you feel that in your body. Just allow yourself to feel whatever sensations, feelings come up. Let them come. Make space for them. Let them be. And when they're ready to pass, let them pass. Whatever you're experiencing, see if you can meet it with acceptance that this this moment is just like this. And there's tightness, or there's a feeling of calm, or the mind is active. Just notice that that's how it is right now. And if the mind is relatively calm, you might just let yourself rest in a more open awareness, where there's not a particular focus, but just aware of whatever comes up. Just letting everything come, letting it be, and letting it pass. You might ask the question, what, if anything, is in the way of being peaceful, truly peaceful, free in this moment? What, if anything, is in the way? And if it feels like something is in the way, this needs to be different, you might turn your attention to that area or that feeling or that emotion or that belief, and just hold it in awareness with kindness. Can you meet this with acceptance? Can this be a moment of peace, of freedom, in the midst of whatever you're experiencing? Peace is this moment without judgment, this moment in the heart space where everything that is welcome. Peace is this moment without judgment, this moment in the heart space where everything that is welcome. I'll finish with this poem by Muhyiddin Ibn al-Arabi. There was a time I would reject those who were not of my faith, but now my heart has grown capable of taking on all forms. It is a pasture for gazelles, an abbey for monks, a table for the Torah, Kaaba for the pilgrim. My religion is love. Whichever the route love's caravan shall take, that shall be the path of my faith. My religion is love. Whichever the route love's caravan shall take, that shall be the path of my faith. So take your time coming back, opening your eyes. If you like to stretch for a minute or two. I'd love to hear if you'd like to share a word or 2 or 3 words in the chat, but just what you noticed coming up. A lot of our practice is just about the awareness of what we're experiencing. Because so much of our life, we're kind of caught up in unconscious behaviors and patterns of thinking, and we're not even very aware of what where was I? What was I thinking about? What was I aware of? So it's just very helpful just to notice. Thank you, Anne. Glad you enjoyed the poem. Thanks, Paddy. Yeah. Last part of the poem moved you deeply. Thank you for sharing that. Jody, gratitude, grace, and hope. Thank you, Jody. Anna, moments of space. Thank you. Feeling into an acceptance of what is here. I wonder, did anyone feel any difficulties coming up? No, and how is it to turn towards difficulties? That's what we'll be exploring today. Sylvia says, thank you so much for the meditation. I struggle to feel emotion knowing my body and had a breakthrough at the end, so helpful. Is there a link for the poem? Yeah. I'll put in the name and the title. I think you should be able to get it. It's in this wonderful. I think it's in here. It's called The Poetry of Presence, an anthology of mindfulness poems. And it's edited by Phyllis Cole Day and Ruby Wilson. And they had this, some of you may know, they did a mindful poem every day for a year. And then they enjoyed it so much and others enjoyed it so much, it went on for 3 years. And then out of that came a book. And so they pulled together these wonderful, wonderful poems. And I hope I'm remembering. I think it's on page 191. Well, maybe it's not. Anyway, I will put that in. Yeah, Muhyiddin Ibn al-Arabi, who is a Muslim mystic, philosopher, sage, and poet born of Arab parents in Spain. Revered as a great spiritual master, he traveled extensively on pilgrimage throughout the Islamic world. He wrote over 350 works, including some of the finest poetry in the Arabic language. It's interesting because I hadn't heard of him before this poem, but I love the poem. Thank you. Just going through what people have shared, the mindfulness of the journey with love, the fuel that drives us. Thank you, Barbara. Achala, fear, helplessness, hopelessness, to-do lists, should, macabre energy. Thank you. Serafina, I was aware of a lot of noise from neighbours this morning, but slowly found acceptance and peace with your guidance. Thank you. Elizabeth, physical pain. Peggy, I appreciate your instruction just to be in the heart space, accepting the moment. Thank you. Paddy, my washing machine was out of balance and shaking the whole room as I meditated, providing a very good lesson in letting minor annoyances and obstacles just be. Thank you. Thank you for that one. Yeah. Sometimes it's good to have minor annoyances as training for the major ones that can come up. So thanks for sharing that. Cindy, sadness came up and I tend to resist the difficult. Thanks for sharing that, Cindy. Anna, Anne has shared the link in the chat. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, from that year of being here. Anna, the idea of allowing freedom and peace in the difficulties, even for a moment, is a helpful thing to hold on to. Thank you. Kathleen Rumi's poem, Welcoming the Guests. My mind continued to review a recent guest and how well I did or didn't welcome the guest. Yeah. And sometimes we can, one of the guests can be judgment of how we've welcomed the guests or haven't. So, everything can be included as a guest. And Pam, love this meditation. I got to see my angel circle who are there to help me. I also felt like ants crawling on my wrist, definitely confronted and accepting difficulty with calm growth. Thank you, Pamela. Rumi has this quote and poem as well as my religion is love. Okay, thanks for sharing that. So, working with difficulties. So the theme of the talk today is making the obstacle the path. There's a Zen saying, they say the obstacle is the path. The obstacle is the path. The way our minds work is we tend to treat obstacles as though they were obstacles, as though they blocked our way. And they can certainly have the appearance of blocking the way. Oh, I can't meditate because I'm just too tired, or I've just got this ache, or I've got too many things going on in my life. That can feel like an obstacle, but, like anything else, if it's really investigated, it doesn't have to really truly be an obstacle, because we can make that awareness of that where we put our attention. So typically, or very often, we treat an obstacle as it's bad, it's something that we don't want, and we push away or avoid or resist or cover up in some way. But the invitation when we make the obstacle the path is to, make the difficulty the place where we pay attention and the place where we wake up. One way we could turn it around to look at it as, rather than see it as this is something in my way, to see it as this is precisely what I'm needing now to wake up, to let go, to find peace. That there's, there's a message, if you like, from the universe that there's something, to pay attention to here. Let's say somebody in your life or somebody in public life is doing or saying things that really annoy us, make us feel angry. A tendency is to think, well, they should be different than they are. They shouldn't be doing this, doing all this harmful thing. And in some ways, there may be, the person may be doing harmful things and not in any way saying that that's okay. But if I am getting annoyed or angry or frustrated or, whatever, what it says is, whatever that person is doing, it says, tells me I need to look at something in myself, because nobody can really make you angry. Nobody can make me angry. It's a choice that we have of how we respond. And nobody really makes us, do anything ultimately. As that very well-known quote from Viktor Frankl, they could take everything from us but the last of the human freedoms, the freedom to choose how we respond. That is something we always have. No one can make us angry. There's something that we're doing or not doing that's contributing, if we're getting caught up in, at least in a kind of afflictive anger. I'm not saying, anger in an immediate sense, maybe actually a skillful emotion, but when we get kind of hooked on it, like they should be different, then we suffer. So turning towards the difficulties and making the difficulties into the place that we can wake up, that we can find greater freedom in our lives. I've been practicing meditation for quite a bit over 30 years. I still, difficult stuff comes up, I still find my mind wanting to kind of push it away. I don't want that. I don't want to be feeling that right now. I don't want to be feeling anxious or stressed or whatever. I don't want to be caught up in this, whatever the feeling might be. So, a lot of what we need to do is just to remember to turn towards it. And that's really the theme for today is seeing the possibility of using whatever comes up, particularly difficulties, as a place of growth and as a place of freedom, of awakening. It is precisely where we need to give up, pay attention, to make the obstacle the path. I shared, and probably heard it in other places, with a very well-known saying from the French philosopher, I think, from the 17th century, Blaise Pascal. He said, all of humanity's problems comes from man's or our inability to sit quietly in a room alone. All of our problems come from our inability to sit quietly in a room alone. And I find a lot of wisdom in this kind of in that reflection, that when we're not able to sit quietly in a room, we're not able to be with our experience, to kind of open to what we're feeling, then inevitably what we do is we project it outwards onto others, into the world, or we repress it. We all resist it. We push it away because we don't like it. We don't want to feel what we're feeling. And whenever we do that, then it comes back in some way. It doesn't actually go anywhere. What Jung said, I think, what you resist persists. It'll keep coming back to us. And so when we're not able to open to and process and be with our experience, then what we tend to do is we bring it out into our relationships, into our families, into our communities, into our world. And you can see, in many ways, all of the suffering of the world comes from the inability of individuals to be able to respond wisely and compassionately to our experience. We collectivize it. We kind of identify with these people and don't like these people, and we create separation. All of those are really reflections of ways in which we're not willing to be with our experience as it is. So our inability to be present with what's here, can be, creates, a great deal of our suffering in our individual lives and in our collective lives. In Buddhist teachings, the way this is framed is that, our inability to be present with our experience leads us into craving, leads us into kind of wanting something we don't have, or pushing away what we don't like. And craving, the Buddha said, is the primary cause of suffering. We're wanting things to be the way we want them to be. And inevitably, when we do that, if we're not able to be with our experience, we act it out on ourselves and on others and on the world in the ways that lead to harm and suffering. And when we're craving or we're resisting experience, one of the things we're not doing is we're not saying yes to our experience. We're actually not seeing things as they really are. We're wanting things. I would say that really all of suffering is wanting things to be different than they are. It could be, an experience like we're waiting in a line and, somebody's taking too long and we're kind of wanting to be somewhere, or we're stuck in traffic and a traffic jam and we want to be somewhere by a particular time. What we're really saying to ourselves is, this should be different. This situation should be different. This isn't how it should be. This isn't how I want it to be, and so we're kind of getting in an argument with the way things are. Or if there's somebody who's annoying us, who's keeping us waiting or saying things we don't like or we think is being mean to us or unkind, what we're really saying is they should be different. This shouldn't be happening. They shouldn't be doing this. They should be acting differently. Or it could be the situation in the country or the world. If we see some people doing harm and other people suffering, this should be different. This shouldn't be happening. These people shouldn't be doing this. And we're in a struggle with the way things are. And I'm not saying they should be doing this, because people, do act harmfully, and it's good to respond to that and do what we can. But what I'm really talking about is the kind of clinging where we're holding on to this reality should be different. This situation should be different. This person should be different. This experience should be different. If I'm wanting something that I don't have, I feel I need to have this to be happy, then what I'm really saying is this should be different. My life should be different right now. It could be, for some people, it could be, I should be in a relationship with somebody and I'm not, therefore I'm unhappy and this should be different. That kind, where we're, reality is like this, but we're believing and thinking and feeling that it should be different than it is. And in that gap, if you like, there's suffering. We're experiencing a kind of division in ourselves, because we're here, but we're wanting things to be like this. We're wanting things to be different. We're feeling some pain or discomfort, and we're thinking, I don't want to feel this. I don't want to have this ache in my shoulders. I don't want to have this, queasiness in my stomach, or whatever it is. I wish this wasn't here. When we resist reality in this way, we suffer. And in some ways, all suffering it could be seen as resisting life as it is, being in a struggle with the way things are. You might look at your own experience and think about, a situation or time where you felt stuck or entangled, or you were really angry or fearful or worried. And you think, well, did I want things to be different than they were? Or maybe even now there may be something, you feel like, there's something going on for you that you feel, okay, that I don't want this, I don't like this should be different. And in that, whenever we're in that place of this should be different, we're really in a struggle with life as it's unfolding. We're in a struggle with reality. And often when we're in that struggle, we're in a situation and we're feeling, I don't like this, I don't want this. One of the things we do, are we try and find ways of easing the discomfort. It could be, if you're having an unpleasant feeling, you're experiencing a difficult emotion, the mind might go to, I've got a bucket of ice cream or whatever, pint of ice cream in the freezer. Oh yeah, and then there's feeling, that nice feeling of that pistachio mint ice cream. Oh, did I say that? And kind of then in some way that could be like, that feels better. I feel a little bit less lonely or sad or whatever it might be, Or sometimes we're feeling sad and we drown our sorrows, with alcohol, or we take a drug, or these are ways in which we're avoiding our experience. We're resisting reality as it is. Sometimes it can be through, if we're worried about all the stuff that we have to do, one of the ways we deal with that is with kind of a lot of thinking and worrying. Well, what if I do this? Maybe I'll do this. And, we get caught up in that. And we think that the worrying or the anxious thinking or the stress thinking is actually going to help us deal with the situation, but it's actually getting us more and more entangled. It's getting us more and more stressed, because the more authority we give to the stress, to the anxious thoughts, the more they color our whole experience, the more we get quite really stressed. We're kind of believing the stories, and we're not engaging with and opening to the direct experience. So these are all ways in which we kind of resist reality. Sometimes it's, by a lot of doing. Sometimes it's kind of doing, covering up, pushing things away or avoiding things by looking for comfort in other places. The problem really is when we meet experience in this way, this should be different, is that we're wanting reality to be different than it is, and that this is essentially it's a recipe for suffering. If you're ever wanting reality to be different, good luck with that one, because reality will always be reality, and we may want it to be different, and we may be able to do things in the future to change things, but right now this is how things are. There's some of you may be familiar with the teachings of Adyashanti, contemporary spiritual teacher. It's a very, very wonderful teacher. He says, we may think so-and-so shouldn't have said that to me. So-and-so person shouldn't have said that to me. But the reality is that they did. And as soon as the mind says something shouldn't have happened, we experience internal division. So you might say, we're here feeling this, and we want to be there feeling that. We don't want them to have said this, if you like. He says it's immediate. Why do we experience division? Because we're in an argument with reality. We're in an argument with reality. So it might be helpful just to think, are there times that you find yourself in an argument with reality? Do you ever complain about things? When we're complaining, we're in an argument with reality, essentially. We're actually saying this person should be different than it is. This situation, you shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't have to wait so long. These people shouldn't be leaving their trash, blah, blah, blah. All of these things, when we complain, there's kind of like, there's reality. Well, they are doing this or they're not doing this. But we're wanting it to be different. And in that separation, there's suffering. In that division between where we are and where we want things to be, there's suffering. Because, he says, we're in an argument with reality. He says, this much is assured. If we argue with reality for any reason, we'll go into division. We'll become divided from ourselves. There'll be like, I'm here, this is my experience, but I'm really wanting things to be here. And that, in that gap, I often come back to this, in that gap is the suffering, because we're divided from ourselves. We're experiencing a reality, but we're wanting a different reality. And reality will always be reality. Well, however much we want things to be different, this is how it is. These people are doing this right now, whether we like it or not. Now, yes, we can work to change things, but right now this is where things are. He says, this much is assured, if we argue with reality for any reason, we'll go into division. This is just the way it works. He says, reality is simply what is. And he says there isn't a justified reason to argue with reality. There isn't a justified reason to argue with reality. So think about, when you do, argue with reality, and kind of think, is there a better way of meeting this situation where we accept reality, and then, we change things if we can change things, do what we can, but from a place of accepting this is the truth, not be in a place of division. And he says, there isn't a justified reason to argue with reality, because we'll never win the fight. We'll never win the fight. Arguing with reality is a sure way to suffer, a perfect prescription for suffering. So thinking about it, inviting that sense of, am I arguing in any area of my life? Am I arguing with reality? And if I am, can I turn towards this and say, this moment, Ajahn Sumedho, American Theravadan teacher, he had kind of the mantra, it's like this. This moment is like this. Whether we like it or dislike it, this moment is like this. Can I meet this moment with acceptance? Can I acknowledge that this moment is like this? And when something's difficult, can I turn towards the difficulty? So if we go back to the Buddha's teachings, craving as the cause of suffering. If craving is the cause of suffering, how do we end suffering? I think, if you follows on, if craving is the cause of suffering, we end suffering by ending the cause. So if we can end the craving, in this case, if we can stop resisting life as it is, then we can end suffering. Then we can move towards letting go of anything we're holding on to. And we really begin by saying yes to reality, yes to what is here now. Eckhart Tolle puts it like this. He says, make the now the primary focus of your life. Always say yes to the present moment. So essentially, say yes to the difficulties. If the difficulties are present, if there's something difficult, can I say yes to this? Can I open to this? Can I be with this? He says, what could be more futile, more insane than to create inner resistance to something that already is? So it's very similar to what Adyashanti says. What could be more futile, insane than resisting, inner resistance to something that already is? He says, what could be more insane than to oppose life itself, which is now and always now? So not to get into a fight with life as it is, as it's unfolding. He says, surrender to what is. Say yes to life, and see how life suddenly starts working for you rather than against you. Say yes to life. Say yes to this moment. Even if it means yes to this moment, and I'm going to do whatever I can to change things. If yes to this moment is an injustice, something you see as, this is wrong. What we're saying yes to is, we're not saying yes, it's right or good that it's happening. We're just saying yes, it's true. We're saying yes, I accept this is true, and I will do whatever I can to mitigate, limit, end the harm that's being caused. So we're holding both of those things at the same time. We're not saying that it's acceptance of, it's not passivity. It's not kind of, that's just how things are. It's completely compatible with working for change, to change what we feel needs to change. But that working for change then comes from acceptance, not from denial or not from resistance. That's the difference, because if it comes from denial or resistance or anger or hatred, then it just compounds the suffering. We just create more suffering because we, put our view or our opinions or what we're clinging to in conflict with what somebody else is clinging to. And so inevitably there's suffering in that. So if we really want to be free, if we want to untangle ourselves from the suffering that we get caught up in, to not be hooked or stuck or entangled, we really need to make the difficulty into the path, make it the place of practice. You might say that if we didn't have the difficulty, I wonder, would we wake up? We would, in the Buddhist kind of cosmology, there are these different planes of existence, from, the animal realms and the hungry ghost realms, where you wouldn't want to be reborn in those realms, hungry ghosts where, whatever you get, it doesn't really feed you. And then there's the realms of the gods, where everything's lovely. But in that, in the cosmology, and obviously you don't need to take this literally, but in the cosmology, in the heavenly realms, they're not as beneficial as the human realm, because you don't have the challenges, you don't have the difficulties. Everybody's so, having such a great time in the sauna and on the beach, everything, everyone's, it's such a pleasant thing that there aren't challenges. Again, that's just cosmology that I think points to this kind of thing, that we really need to, as Ajahn Shanti put it, we need to wake up. We need to find nirvana by way of samsara, by way of the difficulties, by way of the suffering. And what I say as well is that it's not easy to do. They just acknowledge that, really. It's not easy. When difficulties come up, however long we may have practiced, there's still a tendency, I think, to kind of like, oh, I don't like this. This isn't what I want. This isn't pleasant. How can I meditate if I'm feeling tired, or if I'm feeling uncomfortable, or my mind's busy, or I'm anxious? It's not easy. And we have millions of years of evolution that kind of push us and pull us in different directions, that push us towards, to move away from what's unpleasant or threatening. That basically our fight, flight, freeze. When something really threatens us, then we immediately go into reactivity, to fight or to run away or to, get quiet so that the predator doesn't eat us, kind of thing, or some earlier version of us. So to do whatever we need to do to survive, and also to move towards things we don't like, that we do like, that will help us thrive and survive and pass on our genes, all of that. So we need these stimuli. We need the fight or flight. We wouldn't survive without them. We wouldn't jump out of the way of an out of control vehicle if we didn't have the kind of the built-in, safety, move away from threats. But the problem is, we get in trouble when we kind of extend these responses, moving away from immediate danger. We want to be able to do that. If you put your hand on a stove, you want to immediately pull away. We don't want to be able, it's kind of hot, like, burning skin. That would not be a wise kind of way of responding. We want that. But it's when we get in trouble when we extend those immediate kind of survival modes into situations where they aren't needed and actually are counterproductive. So if you respond in the same way to, a bear, to having a talk that you have to give in a month, or a report to write, or something important to do, and you respond in the same way as if you're running away from a bear in the woods, that's not going to be a really helpful response. You're going to be kind of all the time, you're going to be in this, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to do it. It's going to go wrong. And all of the stories the mind creates. And that's not helpful. That's what ties us to suffering. So that's where that's how we get caught up in suffering. Eckhart Tolle, in The Power of Now, makes a really helpful distinction between, the emotion of fear, where we are running away from a bear or something really threatening to us, which is kind of natural and helpful, and what he calls psychological fear. And that's when it's a mind creating the fear. It's not an immediate threat. Nothing is immediately threatening to us, but the mind is projecting. Oh, what about this? People might think I don't know what I'm doing. Or, all of this might in the future. That's the unnecessary part. And that's really the part that ties us to suffering. So because these tendencies to move away from the difficult, to push away what's threatening, or push away what's challenging or difficult or unpleasant, because these tendencies are very strong, the habits of mind, if you like, the conditioning that we develop, because they're so strong, it's really important that we have a practice that helps us to see when we're going in that direction, when we're defaulting to resistance, to avoiding, to checking out. It's like we need a mindfulness bell to say, oh, this is difficult. Let me pay attention here, rather than the kind of the reactive mode. This is difficult. I need to push it away. I need to go and get some ice cream. I need to have a glass of wine, I need to avoid it, or I need to, scream at the television, because I don't like what somebody's doing or saying or whatever. Rather than the reactive mode, we kind of, can I pay attention here? Can I just bring awareness to my experience? So having a path of practice to help us see things clearly, and to help us make beneficial choices. We can choose how we respond. If we can turn towards our experience, we can then say, oh, I could go into reactive mode, but I also could choose just to stay, let the feelings come and go. Another Viktor Frankl well-known quote, he says, between the stimulus and the response is a space. In that space lies our ability to choose. And in our ability to choose lies our growth and our freedom. So finding that space between stimulus and response, that kind of thing of like difficult, move away. If you can find a space, then you can choose. Oh, I can actually choose a different way. Rather than defaulting to the mind, say you're meditating and kind of the mind feels very busy. Oh, I shouldn't, it's a waste of my time meditating now. But rather than defaulting to that, we say, oh, that's just another thought. Can I be aware of that and choose to be here, choose to stay? If I can find that space, then I can make another choice. But often we don't, because we move straight into reactivity. We go with the habitual mode. We go with the mode that we may have, the trail we've gone down many, many times before. And the key really is to shine the spotlight of awareness on our experience. If we don't do that, we will just tend to act out habitually. Jung said, what is not brought to consciousness comes to us as fate. What we don't bring into awareness just gets played out unconsciously as, just in an unexamined way, and it appears as fate. because we haven't paid attention to it. It's just like, oh, this is how it all ended up. And how did I ever end up there? Because, often it's because, we haven't shone the light of awareness on our experience. So the key, coming back to the theme, is make the difficult, make the obstacle into the path, make the place of difficulty the place we pay attention. The poet Rilke spoke of always trusting in the difficult, always trust in the difficult. He says, we have no reason to harbour any mistrust against our world, for it is not against us. If it has terrors, they are our terrors. He goes on, he says, and if only we arrange our life in accordance with the principle which tells us that we must always trust in the difficult, then what now appears as the most alien will become our most intimate and trusted experience. So it appears, first of all, as the other. I don't like this. This is difficult. I want to push it away. But if we make it the object of our awareness, then it can become our most intimate and trusted experience. It can become where we wake up, the place where we wake up. And he has this well-known statement. He says, how could we forget those ancient myths that stand at the beginning of all races? The myths about dragons that at the last moment are transformed into princesses. Perhaps all the dragons in our lives are princesses who are only waiting to see us act just this once with beauty and courage. All the dragons are princesses waiting to see us act just once with beauty and courage. Perhaps everything that frightens us is, in its deepest essence, something helpless that wants our love. So what frightens us is really something helpless that wants our love. So rather than seeing it as alien and other and to be kept away, pushed away, if we turn towards it, then it transforms. It becomes different. Because the it is actually, in Buddhist language, we'd call it a dependent arising. It depends on whatever that, that fear is, whatever that person or thing is bringing. But the other side of it is our own response to that. They arise dependent on each other. So if we don't bring the resistance in, the pushing away, but rather bring in openness, then it inevitably changes the experience itself. Because it's a dependent arising. It arises. Something depends on something else, and in this case, our own response is a crucial element in what we experience. The experience itself is transformed. The fear is transformed when we meet it with kindness and acceptance. It's not as though fear exists as a standalone thing, it's like a solid thing. Fear isn't a solid thing. Fear is a dependent arising. It's a reaction to something, and that can change depending on how we react. So when we open to our experience in this way, when we trust in the difficult, it's really a sea change for us when we're willing to open to our experience, open to the sensations, the feelings, the thoughts, the beliefs, rather than turning away or escaping. And really any wish or aspiration to end suffering in our life has to begin with the willingness to turn towards our difficult experiences and to see them clearly. If we're not willing to be with our experience as it is, to be with reality as it is, we won't find our way out of suffering. We'll always be in avoidance, in resistance, in division. So we really have to if we want to free ourselves, if we want to wake up and live more freely, we have to turn towards what we're avoiding, what we're not looking at, often what we're denying, what we're resisting. So the invitation is just let the difficulty be a place where we really shine the spotlight. We meet our experience, whatever it is, with acceptance, with kindness. This is Eckhart Tolle again. He says, anything unconscious dissolves in the light of consciousness. Anything unconscious, and resistance and avoiding are really unconscious. They're either consciously unconscious or unconsciously unconscious. They're kind of, we're not acting with real awareness. So when we shine the light of consciousness on anything we're resisting, it changes, it dissolves, the thing itself dissolves. And that's the doorway to freedom. He also says, what you accept fully, you go beyond. If we can fully accept our experience, it no longer has its hooks in us. We go beyond the experience. It's not afflictive anymore. So when we learn to stay, we learn to meet our difficulties with acceptance and kindness, things become much less problematical. Because what we're doing is we've stopped throwing fuel on the fire. That's essentially what we're doing. When we turn towards the difficulties, we're no longer, throwing gasoline on the fire so that things become more and more difficult, more and more intense. And then what happens to difficult feelings, emotions, and thoughts? They can come and go in their own time. They don't have an independent life of their own. They're impermanent. A thought, if we don't attach to it, it's just like a cloud, it passes. It's only when we take that thought and we turn it into, this might happen. And then we start creating scenarios around it. Then it becomes much more than just a simple thought. We create stories around it, narratives around it. Difficult emotions come out of that because we start believing our stories. This will happen. Oh, that'll happen. It's like we're telling ourselves ghost stories in a way, and we're getting scared. What was that? The story that the tiger on the wall. You might have, the monk in the cave who paints a picture on the wall of the cave of a really fierce tiger, and every time he looks at it, he gets really scared. And I like that image because we're painting those pictures ourselves. This might happen, that might happen. What if this? What if that? What if X gets elected? Have you ever done that at all? So these scenarios in our mind, and it's helpful to kind of think of scenarios in holding things in awareness. But when we create scenarios and stories, well, this happened and this will happen, this will happen, and then we go to hell in a handbasket. I often joke, it's like we'll end up in a ditch, naked, hungry, alone in a ditch, being tortured. Because the mind just creates more and more scenarios. It kind of, as Jack Cornfield always said, the mind has no shame. The mind is a difficult, dangerous place. Don't go there alone, he would say. So I like that. So turning towards the difficult. And again, just to emphasize, saying yes to the difficulties doesn't mean, saying yes to reality doesn't mean passivity. It doesn't mean doing nothing. It doesn't mean not making change. It also doesn't mean we have to like what's happening. We can still act, and it's very helpful and wise and a good thing to do to help if we can help in any way. But the more our actions come from acceptance of the truth, acceptance of reality, the more they come from non-resistance, the more we're able to bring peace and kindness into the world, and the less we create more suffering. If we work for change from a place of acceptance. It's very different than working to change something from a place of resistance. This shouldn't happen. They're bad people doing bad things. Very different. We say, this is how things are. And this is what I can do to change what can be changed. Finish it with this quote, another quote from Eckhart Tolle. He says, to be in alignment with what is means to be in a relationship of inner non-resistance with what happens, inner non-resistance or inner acceptance to what is happening. It means not to label it mentally as good or bad, but to let it be. And then he asks, does this mean that you can no longer take action to bring about change in your life? Or you might add change in the world. He says, on the contrary, when the basis of your action is inner alignment with the present moment, your actions become empowered by the intelligence of life itself. So life itself is helping us when we come into alignment with the truth, with reality. This is what the Buddha talked about as taking refuge in the Dharma. Taking refuge in the Dharma is taking refuge in the truth, in reality, not in how we want things to be, but in the truth of how things are. And then, certainly we can try to change what can be changed, but we do that from a place of inner non-resistance, inner acceptance of the truth of life as it is. So the encouragement is to let difficulties, if anything comes up in your mind, in your experience as this is difficult and there's a tendency or a feeling to push away, let that be a reminder that you can actually move towards this and open to the experience. And what happens tends to change things in a radical way. I found this in my own life, in recent years particularly, where, sometimes you can wake up in the morning, feeling, there's something you feel out of sorts. And, certain times without awareness, that can kind of become the felt sense of the day. Things aren't going the way I want them to, and it kind of compounds, like, things aren't going well. And the kind of negativity can come in. When I'm able to catch myself, and more, I think over time through practice, I can say, I don't need to create a story about this. I can not just notice that this is difficult, and I can turn towards it and open to it. I say, okay, can I be with this difficult feeling, this difficult experience? And then to say yes. And what tends to happen is things shift, things open up, coming out of that willingness to be with our experience, with my experience as it is. So I would invite you to really make this a place to kind of pay attention. When difficulties or challenges come up, turn towards them, open to them, and see what happens. See what happens. I'll leave it here because I've gone on long enough. But I hope this is helpful, just to kind of like as a encouragement to allow everything in, so that there's nothing we need to really resist in our life. Whatever life brings to us, whatever shows up, this can be a place of awakening too. So nothing is left out. I think that's kind of really the key. The obstacle is the path. Trust in the difficult. So please, if anything you'd like to share, anything or anything comes up, please share in the chat. And I think what we'll do, because we're coming close to time and we'll have some announcements, I can stay around a little bit after 12 if people want to. We'll finish the class formally at 12, and obviously people can get on with the day and get on with life. But if anyone, folks like to stay around, Karen, are you okay for keeping it open for a little bit, or?
Yes, I can for maybe 15 minutes or so.
Let's plan that. Thank you, Karen. And you
Yeah.
can always pass it to me if we need to go on a bit longer. Um, so thank you everyone for your attention. I hope there's something useful here. If there's anything that's not helpful, just leave it on the chair afterwards, and don't take it with you. Just to finish up, just a couple of things. Late, if anyone happens to have a week off coming up in a week, I'm teaching a retreat with Luisa Montero and my partner Rebecca Hines down in Virginia, beginning next Friday. So I'll be down there next Saturday, actually. And be down there teaching for a week. And if anyone wants a last minute retreat, feel free to join us and just let me know and I'll share the info with you. Also, just mention, as we do each week, there's no cost to joining the class. Class is offered on a dana basis or generosity basis. So if you feel inclined, you can make a donation if you're able and inclined. And the donation supports the teacher, me today. And it's through dana, or the practice of generosity, that the teachings have come down to us through 2,500 years and more. And hoping that your time was helpful to you today.